Alright, so I'm back with another video. It's another road to 2200. And once again, I'm going to make a video slightly out of order. So this is the game that I played before my last game, game number two. And game number two is the game I played before the first video I uploaded. So they're a little bit out of order. My first video is game three, my second video is game two, and this is game one. But all of the future videos I will be making will be my fully updated rating, and they will be all the games I played after that. So I'm not going to go back in time any further, but I figured I would include this one just because it's a cool game and it's a quick game. So let's just jump right in. So I'm playing a 2030, and I have the white pieces with a 2089 rating. This is another 10-minute game. I go pawn to d4, black goes pawn d5, pawn to c4, and pawn to c6. So we have a Slav defense, and it's yet to be seen if black chooses to play the semi-Slav with e6 or if he keeps it a true Slav defense with knight f6 and maybe bringing the bishop out somewhere. Knight f3 was played, knight f6, all normal stuff, and I played this pawn to e3 move. So this is a move that I really like playing. It kind of sidesteps all of the theory with knight to c3 and d takes c4, which I like. And after e3, this just looks to recapture on c4 right away. So d takes c4 is not really a very advisable move in this position. So black chooses to play a6. This is a pretty reasonable move. Looking to play a quick b5 is a common idea in some of these Slav positions. I take on d5, c takes d5, and knight to c3. So I'm kind of lining up a trappy line that I like playing where white goes knight to e5. And black plays a very obscure move here. He plays b5 right away. I can't really tell you why this move is necessarily bad. It just feels premature to just be moving all of the queenside pawns before you've played e6 or developed any of your other pieces. It seems like you're wasting some time, but I think with good play from black, I don't think I would be able to take advantage of this really. But I played knight to e5 anyway, and I think black is probably just fine after pawn to e6, but instead black chooses to play bishop to f5 now. And I think this is where black starts to go astray a little bit, and I play pawn to g4 to try and take advantage of this. And it's important to note here, the reason that bishop f5 is bad is because after g4, really the only moves that you can consider are bishop to c8 or maybe bishop to e6. Bishop to d7 is a very unpleasant move because after pawn to g5, knight to g8 might be an option. It looks like b4 is the best move, but really if you move this knight, this pawn on d5 is going to hang, and it's going to be a very, very unpleasant position. So let's just say you play, I don't know, knight g8. Even queen f3 here is apparently pretty crushing. But it just looks horrible for black to just be retreating all his pieces. So I think the best move is probably to just go all the way back. But I highly doubt that someone is going to see that. And I think it's more likely that black is going to play bishop to g6, following moving the bishop out to f5. So that's what we have in the game, but unfortunately this is like almost like the losing move, kind of. So bishop to e4 was actually played first, and then after f3, then bishop g6, but it's more or less the same as just playing bishop g6 right away, because the same follow-up is h4. So after bishop e4, I go f3, bishop g6, h4, and the problem with this position is that black's bishop is kind of short on squares. So I'm threatening to trap the bishop with h5, and if you move h6 or h5, I'm just going to take the bishop on g6, and your pawn structure is going to be just absolutely crippled. So h6 was playing the game, I take on g6 and bishop d3, and suddenly it's like, okay, you can't defend this pawn unless you play king to f7, which is a very unpleasant move to want to play. You can't go g5 because I take, and you can't take back because of this pin. So queen to c7 was tried here. I'm not really sure why black didn't try and play king to f7. But I just take on g6, and after king d8, I just go knight to e2. looking to cover the g3 square from a check from his queen. And then also I'm looking to potentially clear the c-file and maybe put a rook down the c-file, but this is going to be a very difficult position for black to defend. Black tries to strike back with e5. I take on e5, queen takes e5, and queen to d4 was played. This was kind of an inaccuracy on my part because knight c6 ends up being a pretty good move for white. And then if I try and trade, there's a fork that happens that I don't really want to deal with. And I think I'd probably have to play something like queen b6 check, or maybe move my queen somewhere else. So queen b6 check might be a reasonable option. But even queen c7 isn't so bad for black, because then he's trading the queens, and I'm only up a pawn here, so I didn't really get to take advantage of black's weak king in this case. So I really want to keep the queens on the board, which is kind of counterintuitive to why I played queen d4 in the first place. So queen d4 is really just like not a good move at all. But in the game, he plays bishop to d6 to defend his queen, and then I go bishop to d2, looking to maybe deliver some sort of check on a5. Once again, knight c6 is not actually possible here, I'm pretty sure, because after knight to c6, then queen b6 will end up winning the knight. Or if king to d7, I think bishop f5 check is going to be pretty crushing. I could be wrong. It looks like queen takes f5 is a very strange move. What happens after queen takes f5? What if I just take back? Oh, that's clever. Rook to b8 and my queen is trapped. I don't think he would ever see that, so I think after bishop f5 I would probably just be winning. But that would have been a clever queen trap if that had happened in the game. But after bishop to d2 instead of knight c6, he goes queen takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to g3 check, king to f1, bishop to e5. He's just looking to, maybe he'll give up his bishop for my knight, but also he's just putting his bishop on a pretty good square. I play bishop to a5 check, delivering a check. King to d7, bishop f5 check, king to e7. I give another check, king f7. I give another check, king to e8, and I go knight to f5 here. So it looks like knight to c6 is a pretty reasonable move here. And instead he goes rook to h7, which is just like a ridiculously bad move. I mean, I guess he's scared of me taking this pawn on g7, but I'm not sure I can advocate for this move. If you do something like a5, I think I just bring my rook into the game and threaten checkmate. So I think black's position gets bad very quickly if knight c6 is played. This is probably the best attempt, but even then you're just giving up another pawn, and then your king is still on the run. So after knight f5, he plays rook to h7 to try and defend the pawn. Maybe he can escape with b6 and try and get some lateral defense, but I think he's going to be too slow. He actually resigns after rook c1, and I don't think it's like completely lost yet. I think you can try knight to d7, but I think he was just like so upset about his position. He didn't want to play it out anymore. I'm only up a pawn here, so it's like not completely hopeless, and knight d7 does cover the mate threat. So obviously after something like a5, I can just mate on c8, but if he plays knight d7, he covers the mate threat, and it's not immediately clear how I win. Something like h5 would be just like crushing, because his rook is just going to be entombed, but I don't think it's worth resigning just yet. But regardless, it was a pretty cool game, and after bishop to f5, g4, I mean, it's hard to say that black should go back to c8, because, you know, that's just a hard move to play. But bishop to g6 and bishop to e4, they're pretty much the same, and they both kind of lose or get a very bad position after this h4 idea. So that's kind of the whole theme of this opening. When I go knight e5, it's kind of a hidden threat with g4. So this game was relatively quick. Queen d4 was a really bad move, but outside of that, I thought it was all relatively straightforward. I was just using the two bishops and black's weak king to my advantage. I think that's going to be all for this video, but I will see you guys in the next one.